Hello, Kai here with you to share this card that I did. I've done two cards actually. This is the one that I did yesterday, and I did distress ink oxides on glossy paper with that card. With today's card, I'm using photo paper, like photography paper that you would print your digital images out onto. It's thinner than the glossy cardstock, but it takes the color quite differently. I'm also going to be using these penny black stamps that I'm showing you, the sentiment collection I just showed you. I'm also using happy thoughts, some baby wipes, and of course the distress oxide inks in several colors. Just a tad of the broken china I'll use, and the wilted violet as well. One of my favorite colors is the wilted violet. I love using that color. So on I go. I put the colors down lightest to darkest. I use a spritzer just for a little bit of water and make a little puddle, starting with the wild honey, and then just do that smooshing technique, which I'm sure everybody is aware of. Lol Thompson has a great video on YouTube showing this technique, and I have it linked on my blog under awesome tutorials if you'd like to have a look. I'm using the wild honey first. I like the tone of this yellow for this card in particular. I also like mustard seed, but today it's going to be wild honey. And then I move on with I won't bore you with all the details, but drying is very important in between each color that you add. So I move on to the spiced marmalade. And then I'm going to go off camera when I add the twisted citron. I'll come back in at the end of the picked raspberry, and we'll do the broken china, which is just a bit on the card when I come back in, because this is the boring part, of course. Once you know how to do the smooshing, or you have an idea how you would like it to appear on your card, then everybody has their own way. I like getting some of the lines to show in my smooshing, so I try and make that a point, which is why I'm leaving that kind of semicircle on the bottom of the card there. I like that kind of look. So once this is done, it's really important to make sure that the whole panel is completely dry before you proceed. I'll be using Penny Black's, I don't even know how you say this flower, effulgent. Effulgent. I'm going to have to look that up on Google, how to say it. But it's a pretty flower stamp. It's one of her slapstick cling stamps, and I like it done in all one color. I think it looks really cool. So that is the flower that I'll be doing, and I'll be doing it in the wilted violet. So adding the broken china is a bit, I don't want it to take over, which it can easily do. So it's just there in a very subtle tone. So I'm using my mini Misty today to stamp the flower, taking my mouse pad out and putting in my piece of card. Just going to put it on an angle, and I'm coming in from the top for this card. It's going to look better when I add my sentiment rather than coming in from the bottom. I think that's just preferential idea on how I want my card to look. So I add quite a bit of ink here, as much as possibly can, and I stamp without spritzing. I do a couple passes this way to get a good layer of ink on the card panel. And then the third pass, I add spritzing little bits at a time, because I don't want it too much water on it. I don't want the look that I normally would want on a piece of watercolor paper, as this is a different kind of technique and you want a different look for it. So the next pass, I'm going to be spritzing just the top of it with water, using my mini misters for this. And I'm adding in ink where I think it needs extra ink on the card. When I spritz, I seem to get water everywhere, just not on the stamp. Excuse me. So I'm thinking that I have too much water on it there, so I'll just breeze it dry. Some of the things I do sometimes, I just have to shake my head. So I add a little bit of spritzing to the bottom part. I'm not adding any extra ink. There is enough on the stamp to transfer. I'm just adding it in certain areas where I think it needs extra ink on the card, so I just press down in the spots that I needed. I think there's one more there that I do, or two more, before I'm happy with the outcome. It's just being happy with how it presents on the cardstock. So now I'm going to stamp the sentiment. I'm using Memento Tuxedo black ink for this. I want it to pop off. If I used another distress ink color, it would just kind of fall into the card, I think. I do several passes. I think I do 3 passes just to get good coverage. And then I dry the complete panel very well. You need to make sure that the panel is good and dry. The thing that I found with working on the glossy paper was even drying it fairly well, you can get some streaking, especially by using the wilted violet, which you'll see I'll get just a little bit here. So I changed the way that I'm going to bring down the baby wipe, which is what I'm doing now, is adding the baby wipe to the layer. Now right there it begins to streak, and I don't want that, so I clean up the streak area, which if this happens to you, you can clean it up as long as you do it relatively quickly. And then I buff the areas where the wilted violet is, so that it's not being brought down into the rest of the card. You can see the ink coming off on the baby wipe there. And this is good and dry too. This was dried well, and I even left it to sit for about half an hour before I did this. So you can see that it just changes with the baby wipe. The color just shouts at you like, hello, I'm here. It's so pretty. So I end up mounting this on some fun foam using Score Pal tape, and that gives it a little bit more dimension on my pale pink cardstock. I've also done the same technique on the inside of the card, and stamp the sentiment in the wilted violet to bring the purple inside. And that's my card. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you the next time.